What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're going to jump in and talk about some monstrous machine guns in Destiny 2, which are totally worth going after now. Not only because they're already very good, and a little bit underrated, which I know is because of the heavy weapon and DPS meta in general right now. However, according to Bungie, machine guns are set to see buffs yet again in Season 19, and so it's certainly worth thinking about getting some decent rolls in preparation, so we'll focus on some of them in the video today. As always, I hope you guys enjoy this one, but without further delay, let's get into it. Initially, what have Bungie said about machine guns in future? Well, according to them, they plan to drop a few buffs during Season 19, not necessarily at the start, but they'll be focusing on making machine guns better as a heavy option in PvP, reducing the difference between them and other heavy weapons in PvE, and making them less punishing to use for ad clearing. And so obviously in PvP, we know just how strong machine guns have been in the past, especially looking at Destiny 1, where they were kind of a go-to option for sixes and things like that. But in PvE, reducing the difference between them and other heavy weapons could potentially look like boss damage buffs. That seems possible if they want them to be closer in line with popular heavy weapons right now. And then making them less punishing to use for ad clearing, as well as looking like damage buffs, it could also affect things like ammo and reserves. So I'd say there's definite promise for machine guns at the moment, and given that some are really strong with the right rolls right now, they're only going to get better next season. A weapon which is totally worth looking at is the Fine Memorial machine gun from back on the moon. A big plus with this one is that it's very farmable, including for solo players, and so if you head to the Lectern of Enchantment on the moon, and then look for the Essence of Greed bounty, which requires completing events on the moon, as well as getting machine gun kills and picking up some ethereal charms in the Temple of Crota, which there are easy guides for if needed. Overall, it's a pretty easy weapon to farm, and Fine Memorial is an adaptive frame arc machine gun. Right here we have one with Subsistence and one for all, and obviously Subsistence is a really strong perk, partially reloading the magazine on kills. And even in tougher content, this is a valuable bonus. Plus, if Bungie do adjust ammo or reserves on machine guns, you can imagine that this perk will only get better. But on top of that, one for all is a really good damage perk, and hitting 3 separate targets increases damage for a moderate duration. I believe it's a 35% damage bonus for 10 seconds when hitting 3 targets within 3 seconds of each other. And so, for ad control, even tankier ads and targets, it's a decent perk, and machine guns are probably one of the best weapons to use this bonus. Other good possible roles for PvE though, in the first slot include perks like auto-loading holster, clown cartridge and field prep, and then slot 2 can potentially roll demolitionist, adrenaline junkie and frenzy, which are all really good PvE perks, although for both damage and the amount of time that that buff is active, I'd say in a lot of situations one for all is probably the best damage perk. So it's totally a weapon to look out for, but a brief honourable mention for a somewhat similar weapon this season would be Plank Stride, which is the seasonal machine gun for Season of Plunder. It's a craftable weapon, which is a bonus, and while I don't rate the rapid fire frame family quite as much, it is another targetable arc machine gun that can also roll unrelenting like Fine Memorial, as well as swashbuckler for damage options, and if you pair that up with Mulligan, or since it has a lot of recoil, heating up and perpetual motion, it could be decent as well. However, I would say Fine Memorial is probably a better weapon, but that's just me. Another really good mention here though is for the Quillem's Terminus. This is a Kingsfall weapon, and so it has crafting on its side, although it does require the raid. It's absolutely one of the best stasis machine guns around in a high impact frame, and the role we have here has Unrelenting, where rapidly defeating targets triggers health regeneration, and we're also using Headstone, where precision final blows spawn a stasis crystal at the victim's location. If you pair this with a stasis subclass with the Whisper of Fissures fragment, which increases the damage and size of the burst when you destroy a stasis crystal or frozen target, it is a really good weapon for ad control. As you can see right here, when we're getting kills, we're dropping stasis crystals at a ridiculous rate. Obviously, it's huge for ad control, both freezing targets and causing those big crystal bursts as they get destroyed. With that further damaging and killing nearby targets, the nice thing paired with Unrelenting is that most of those multi-kills, including from crystals, are triggering health regen. And so for some of the tougher content, it's both strong enough to kill a lot of stuff, but also provide that health, increase survivability, and keep us in the fight for longer. For PvE, I'd say Unrelenting looks like one of the best bonuses in the first trait slot, although it can get stats for all and heating up as well. Then in slot 2, other possible perks include Firing Line, which obviously is good for damage and could be pretty good if we see buffs to boss damage in particular. But it can roll Killing Tally, which is a nice damage bonus. as well as fireflies, so it definitely has some unique elements. Another easily acquired weapon with some similarities to Quillam's would be the Recurrent Impact. And as our honorable mention right here, this is the Season of the Risen machine gun. It's a rapid fire frame once again, but it can roll headstone, which is neat. Plus it can be paired with subsistence and other damage perks like One for All, Firing Line, and Frenzy. So it's another stasis option, although I'd say that Quillam's is a better archetype at the moment. The next machine gun worth taking a look at though would be Commemoration, which is an adaptive frame void machine gun and it drops in Deepstone Crypt, so another raid gun, but it can roll the simple old-fashioned combo of Feeding Frenzy and Rampage. Obviously this is definitely for ad control, but it's one of the best combos historically in the game, and if you take down a couple of lower tier mobs to proc Rampage and then start chewing through tankier targets or champions, it's a really powerful weapon, and again, recalling Bungie's plan to make machine guns less punishing for ad clearance, these kinds of rolls could really have the potential to go off in a bunch of content, especially for solo players, and when running stuff like dungeons and grandmasters. There's a lot going for it, and as well as Feeding Frenzy, Commemoration can roll Reconstruction, which is a DSC perk, and the weapon slowly reloads itself from reserves up to double its capacity. That's a fantastic perk. Then it can roll Rampage, Dragonfly, and Unrelenting as well, so some absolutely unique options there. Another adaptive frame void machine gun to mention, of course, would be Corrective Measure though, and that drops from Vault of Glass. It can do a similar combo to Commemoration, with Feeding Frenzy and One for All, which is pretty great. Then in slot 1 it can also roll Subsistence and Demolitionist, and slot 2 can potentially roll Adrenaline Junkie, which naturally will pair pretty well with Demolitionist. But there's also High Impact Reserves and Firefly in the mix, so it's a totally valid option as well. But here, finally, another mention which I can't avoid because I love it, but from Year 5's Duality Dungeon, Fixed Odds is a really good weapon. It has solar damage and a high impact frame, and the big unique appeal point for the weapon is that it can roll Incandescent in the second slot. And we know this is a really strong and fun perk, plus if you're using machine guns to control ads in harder content, being able to spread Scorch and get huge ignitions on groups of enemies is absolutely awesome. Obviously that isn't an option on many machine guns, so it's worth noting on Fixed Odds, where you can pair things like Feeding Frenzy or Field Prep with Incandescent. So that could be another good one to look out for. And for now guys, those are my top legendary machine guns from the past year or so which are worth hunting down, or pulling out of the vault when machine guns get some buffs in Season 19. Of course it's possible that those buffs will affect exotic machine guns as well, so we'll see how it might improve Thunderlords, the Xenophage, or even Heir Apparent. Sometimes the exotics get separate tuning, so we'll see. But let us know guys, which of these do you already enjoy using or plan to hunt down? Definitely give us your thoughts in the comment section, but if you've enjoyed the video today, a rating below helps us out a bunch, and feel free to get subscribed to the channel if you want to see more Destiny stuff. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.